Welcome to another episode of Crypto with English. Now, here's a subject matter we don't traverse too much into, but today we're going to take a bit more of a deep dive into it. So, we all focus on the potential and the benefits and you could almost say the great super magnet of what draws people into blockchain, cryptocurrency, NFTs, and just Web3 as a whole. But we seldom talk about some of the underlying ingredients, the philosophies and metaphysics behind a lot of this as to what makes it work, why it draws people into this, and in fact, why, in many ways, this type of philosophical model of values should actually be like the foundation of this greater type of house we're all trying to build. So I'd like to introduce to you all today a very, very awesome guest, the Wizard of Hahz, Hahz Terry of Love NFT. Hahz, thank you very much for coming on to the show today.
Thanks for having me. That was a great intro.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate that. So before we deep dive too deeply, let's provide a little preamble for a lot of this. So could you talk about Love NFT first? How you got into that project, what you're working on, and what are some of the goals you plan on hitting?
Great question. Love NFT was birthed purely from the purpose side of blockchain. Specifically, I had a PPC agency for 10 years that basically collapsed during the pandemic due to 60% of my businesses, small businesses, no longer needing marketing services during the pandemic, which prompted me to say to my wife, hey, we're going to put this company on ice to get ahead of this issue,
Right.
to create crypto capital for small businesses. During 2020, when this happened, we saw the greatest surge of wealth in our lifetime. And I was trying to figure out why crypto wasn't used to bail out small businesses in the event of needing pandemic relief capital.
Right.
It prompted me to tell my wife we're going to start a blockchain nonprofit to create a solution to this problem, and that solution ultimately was Love NFT, being that you NFTs and just the NFT technology of blockchain allows small businesses to onboard to blockchain fairly easy in a way of de-commerce is the new e-commerce. Businesses now have the ability to tokenize their services and products in a way never, in an ability that has never been done before to, onboard or usher in this new digital economy in a way that's comparable to e-commerce.
Very well said. Based on all that, and you raised some excellent points, and you provided some really great backstory in that. But did you feel, or did you spot out there was some sort of overwhelming theme of certain groups got a golden parachute, others didn't, and perhaps that golden parachute's been going to the wrong parties. Let's say between 2008 and then kind of what we saw during the pandemic.
Yeah, it's funny that being in the digital marketing space for close to 20 years now, I watched history repeat itself. In comparison to NFTs are the new digital marketing. Digital marketing is going to evolve into NFT marketing, but we're seeing the same rollout of small businesses. Every business will utilize NFTs, whether they know it or not right now. And this is what happened with the early ages of digital marketing. Most companies didn't believe in it. There was a lack of trust. There was a lack of understanding. Few people got it, and the people who got it were able to kind of get ahead of the curve. But there was a lot of bad players or market manipulation because few people learned the lingo and they manipulated small businesses or took advantage of them in a way where they knew that if I could sell them on this new way of ushering or way of drawing in business, then I could capitalize off of it without fully understanding it. So, we're at that same space with NFTs now. A lot of people are seeing that this is the next wave and every business will need it. People are learning the lingo, but they're not learning it fully. They're learning it just enough to potentially sell a company or an existing client on it. And we have to kind of create the educational awareness to make sure that this space or this new technology doesn't get tainted in the way of digital marketing
Yeah.
was tainted and trust wise specifically.
Yeah. And to say the least, this is supposed to be kind of both a sword and a shield for small businesses, especially like, needing liquidity, during these bad times. And, like you said, there's a noticeable pattern for this. I think in the past 30 years, there is a clear, pattern to a lot of this. And, I think if any of us were to turn on, the usual news and maybe some of the big players, what are many detractors or critics of NFTs getting wrong about NFTs? Because I think there's this dialogue out there. Okay, yeah, it's for making art, but there's also a lot of scams there. I think there's a lot of scams in anything, so to say. But there is a dialogue that is quite dismissive about NFTs, and to an extent, that does exist within the Web3 blockchain space as well. So maybe to kind of help illuminate some of this, what do you think people get wrong about NFTs?
Great question. I think that we have witnessed for the last 2 years theories of how it will be used, and ideally, how this will all play out is every every physical asset will become a digital asset, but every way that we currently communicate in regards to digital files or anything that's currently being utilized in a digital format will evolve into the new format of an NFT. So, I think the easiest way to explain it is it's just another format, the same way that you can change the format from a JPEG to a PNG or a
Right.
PNG to another file or extract the file, extract the format. It's just another level of file storage.
Right.
So, if you can imagine anything in the digital form currently on Web 2 will evolve into Web 3 in the form of an NFT. So I guess that's the best way to explain how this will all play out. But it's the ultimate level of security, meaning that you
Yeah.
own it in your wallet. So you no longer are uploading this file to a cloud or a third party that's hosting or storing your file and charging you a reoccurring fee to host your file that you supposedly own. It's
Yeah.
stored in your crypto wallet, and you make one payment or you pay a fraction of the cost to host your file that you own. So
Right.
this is another level of ownership. And ideally, everything that you own will be stored in your crypto wallet that only you have the keys to. So,
Yeah.
we've been on blockchain, we've been utilizing this technology. It's just that these companies have not told us that, because if you educate the end user to them using this technology, they have to inform you about the benefits. They have to inform you about the costs have changed. We're still
Right.
getting charged old fees for new technology
Right.
that, if you send $1 million today, it's a penny. It doesn't matter how much you send, and it's
Right.
instantly. But we have this miscommunication of, they're using this technology, but they're not informing us because we are paying these old fees. So, once everybody wakes up and realizes uh, that this technology, they've always been using it, even though they're currently in fear of it, you know, it's gonna be a new awakening of consciousness to who you really trust.
Right. And I think, just from, watching the news, like, you hear about every few years that certain banks find themselves in like these class action lawsuits for these like various hidden fees or these various kind of so-called almost like hidden in the background type of recurring fees that people don't
Right.
really notice at first or even notice for a long time. And then it seems like when the feet are held to the fire, there ends up being like a very strong legal basis. And then that's how you hear about these class action lawsuits. And
Right.
I think often a lot of people end up getting those little postcards in the mail about it, so to say. And not to name any names, of course. But one of the things that stood out was this. I think if you were to include the past 2 years of the pandemic, and even a little bit before, I think we all here in the US like to celebrate upward mobility. And I can't think of an industry where that is as strong these days than in blockchain, Web3, and crypto, where you have essentially people becoming wealthy almost overnight. Maybe not overnight, but within a very short period of time, because they have an idea. They went to bat, they swung for the fences, and it worked, so to say. So to think that if that's kind of the overall theme in the United States, the American dream, as we call it, going for it, so to say, why isn't that celebrated as much? Because I would think this, if we're talking about all the problems with inflation and student loans and the economy, well, people that are becoming self-made millionaires overnight, that actually solves the problem over time. Like when you have people who essentially are able to take an idea, make money out of it, these are going to be the people who are going to be stimulating the economy. So why is it that there is almost like a unfair amount of coverage, whether it's the lack of coverage or almost like, well, they're probably involved in something really shady at the moment? What are your thoughts on that? Because like I said, I would think that this is something that should be celebrated across the board,
Yeah, that's a great topic of conversation because, the belief system, I think it's a level of awakening that's happening in this world. And I think as a collective consciousness, I explain that blockchain is just a level of consciousness. And as more people awaken, will they see that there's a solution to this problem of our previous belief system of you needed this to get that. You needed an investment to obtain this. If you didn't have an investment, you couldn't launch a successful project. That belief system no longer exists. In the case of NFTs, there's been collections that, amassed trillions of dollars, in a fraction of the time of a Fortune 100 company. We're seeing this new age of belief system that, ideally when we went to school, we were told if you didn't obtain a master's, you couldn't make this much. If you didn't obtain a doctor's, you couldn't make this much. That no longer exists. You can make six figures selling NFTs. You can make 7,000 a month. The average seller at one time on OpenSea was making 7,000 a month selling NFTs with no degree, no overhead fees. This is e-commerce. So this is a new way of doing business that the masses are not aware of. In the event of inflation in the current state of our economy, you would think more education would be, more people would spend money to inform people about this new economy or this new digital economy. And we're starting to see everything unravel and people reveal their true colors about, are they really for the people or are they for profit? Because, in the event of a lot of these traditional companies not being able to capitalize off of blockchain, they're not teaching people about this new age way of making money because it doesn't benefit them.
Yeah.
So, now we can see who's really for, the people or for this humanity overall is because, as you mentioned, there's just a new way to earn. And it's going to boil down to who's for the betterment of us moving forward as humanity and who's for, this profit system that is currently sinking. So I think as the problem with Web3 is that they try to onboard the masses from profit. And in the event of a lack of trust in finances and technology, two of the hardest things for the masses to comprehend, when you're leading or you're selling somebody on something they're uncertain about, they're not going to invest in it. So I think any purpose project is going to attract the masses when it's led by how can you solve something in the real world? How can we utilize this technology to fix something that's broken, like the rental crisis, like these current real world issues that Web3 is not focused on. Web3 is trying to onboard people to the metaverse, but people are trying to pay their bills. There's a disconnect.
Yeah, and I came across this quote from a philosopher one time, but it goes along the line like this, and I'm paraphrasing this: the easiest way to rob from the middle class is to have them fight each other. So, thinking about that quote, I thought, well, when did all of this start? So, one of the things that came to mind was 1971, when under the Nixon administration, the U.S. was no longer on the gold standard, and I believe that's essentially the beginning of almost like you could say the debt standard, as some may call it. So I kind of wonder, let's say taking it back from 1971 till now, obviously, debt securities are maybe in one ways an attractive way to expand the economy in the short term, but it seems like in practice, over you could say 50 years so far, it actually removed a lot of liquidity from the economy. So what happens when you remove liquidity? People get desperate. People face more hard times. We face these more unstable type of economic patterns, so to say, as well. And, it seems like not every country has removed the gold standard. And in fact, other countries, in fact, buy up gold in large volumes. That actually includes countries like China, so to say. What do you think is going on? And do you think that was like a philosophical move as far as imposing some kind of new structure on society? Because it seems very peculiar. Because gold is, since the beginning of time, in any given continent, a valuable commodity that more or less kind of maintained value and also prevented a lot of things like inflation. If you have like commodities like gold backing up, let's say, whatever you're trading, bartering, the currency, it makes things pretty baseline, which is good. And then I think to myself, okay, so now since 71, we've become a debt security kind of economy. That is going to make people handcuffed, especially to the uncertain, bad economic times, more so than liberating. I know I kind of went in the rabbit hole there, but I know we like to get into these things. What are your thoughts on that?
That's definitely a rabbit hole question. I think, as I mentioned, we're starting to see who's for purpose and who's for profit. Ideally, a lot of investors have bet against the people and have bet against this economy going sour. In the event of, Obama, Bill Gates, numerous high-level profile figures have elaborated and explained in different ways that 60% of our workforce is going to be replaced by AI and ideally NFTs in the event of the economy crashing. So, at what point do we inform people of this new digital economy, a new way of earning? Because we all have to evolve with this technology. We all have to keep up. If you don't keep up, you're going to be left behind. And in the event of being left behind, it's going to result in debt. It's going to result in you not able to evolve your business. And I think that's the hardest thing for small business owners is keeping up with this new technology. In the event of still having to run your business, your only solution at that point is to be reliant or trust a third party to help you out. And, I think the most frustrating thing me and my wife were discussing during the pandemic was these companies lack a heart. At what point do we say we can suspend your payments for this software, this hosting company, or this overhead to run your business to help you out? There wasn't enough help being done for small businesses, which resulted in a lot of them closing doors because this makes small businesses reliant on having to find a job now. So this ultimately benefits the traditional corporations that want to stay in power and to stay in control of this economy. When we're onboarding to a economy that runs itself, that no longer has a middleman, that has a new trust system that evolves how we do business in a peer-to-peer fashion versus a middleman being involved in every transaction. So there's a lot of people in power that don't want this new economy to take place. So they're trying to sustain and prolong, this technology being ushered into the masses. So there's a lot of conflicts of interest in regards to certain bigger brands patenting this technology to keep it from the people. There's just a lot of conflicts of interest, to say the least, when it comes to our ability to realize that we can create, we all can have wealth.
Yeah.
This belief system of your limitation, as Kanye would say, your ceiling of how much you can make no longer exists, because Web3 is kicked down that door of how much you can earn or how much an NFT is worth or
Right.
how much something can sell for. Those ceilings no longer exist. It's kind of parallel to art. It's based off of the valuation of the buyer. You know what I
Right.
mean? There's no ceiling of what somebody would pay for an NFT. And that's the hardest thing for us to realize, is that, as you mentioned, our currency once being backed by gold, we never had true valuation system, a model that was utilizing the technology to evaluate what something was worth. Prior to Web3, if somebody said this house was $7 million, and if somebody was good enough to sell somebody on that belief that this house is worth $7 million, and somebody buys it for 7 million, it's worth 7 million. But
Right.
that still was never backed by anything. That universally, somebody in Australia could say, "Oh yeah, that's worth 7 million." We never had that type of evaluation model that we
Right.
have today with blockchain technology. So this changes our world of value. So this is like, what I explained is a great reset of our economy, because now we have an evaluation model to base everything on. Every asset will be valued based off of blockchain technology. Either auctioned, purchased, or a public ledger that utilizes a way that me and you can see, okay, somebody paid for this, somebody bid on this, somebody's willing to pay X amount of money for this. We This is kind of like a new way um, of agreeing on what something is worth, because a lot of our current physical assets are overvalued. And in the event of this market or inflation, it goes up. But then
Yeah.
certain things don't need to go up. Certain things need to go down. Everything just goes up, but everything but our wages, everything but our salary. So my solution to fixing this wage system is backing our services by NFTs, because now
Right.
we can see what our services are worth. Now, we can see what our products are worth and our services. We
Right.
only really discuss what products are worth, but in the need of new services and new ways to sell services, we can now evaluate what a position or a role or kind of uh, somebody's services is worth in contributing to a project and contributing to whatever use case now. So it's just overall a great time to reassess our value, our broken value system.
Right. So, with Love NFT, you can essentially have, let's say, the value of that NFT almost be like the underlying asset for like an economy, or like the collateral, so to say. And from that, you can kind of create liquidity, so to say, for small businesses who really need to, who are really trying to pick themselves up and are really trying to, survive, so to say. And
Right.
it seems like, I think this is abundantly clear to all of us, that was certainly an unmet need over the past few years as well. And I think, like you, I wouldn't expect, let's say, to be this huge endorsement of, let's say, status quo industries. Oh yeah, let's have crypto come in. Let's help that segment of industry out. Actually, in
Right.
fact, a lot of the reporting was quite the opposite of that during the past 2 years. As well. One of the striking things I noticed, and I think like many, and you're based in New Orleans, is that correct?
Yeah, currently.
Right. So I think like in New York City and like down there, some of the best places to grab a bite to eat are like the hole in the wall restaurants. The ones that
Right.
that are kind of modest, but everybody knows about them. Everybody knows about them. Middle of 2020 to, like, let's say the middle of 2021, walking around the city, this could be midtown, uptown, downtown. What I saw was, as far as small businesses, all boarded up, shut down, out of business. But I saw the big players still open for business with the lights on, still doing well and whatnot. So it seemed to me like, is this a controlled demolition of sorts? Because I walk into town. It's almost like, don't mind me, I like to use movie references. It's like I Am Legend. It's like Mad Max Beyond the Thunderdome, Road Warrior. It's like Book of Eli. You walk down the street, it's like, what the hell is this? Is this a Hollywood set, or is this real life right now? And I saw the usual places, the usual fast food kind of places open. They're fine, and then I see places I used to go to, done. They're gone, so to say. So I kind of wonder. There is a philosophical, some sort of social contract, group of values that's clearly missing. Because, at the end of the day, in any given community, it's going to be the small businesses where you celebrate, your graduations, your weddings, when there's, whenever like a child is born, like these are the things people go to. These are the things that people will, invest in, their time and their money. It's not going to be, it's not going to be per se at McDonald's. Small businesses in those small restaurants, these are people these are people you see very frequently. And often these are kind of the places where whenever there's big or special events, they bring people together. Right. So it kind of seems like, okay, so is there going to be a situation where this is going to be one less pillar in the community for people when you get rid of these type of small businesses? Because it's like, so people are going to be separate. Where are they going to celebrate like christenings? When are they going to celebrate anniversaries? When are they going to celebrate graduations? And it's like, no one knows.
Yeah, that's a great segue. One of the companies that I had prior to the pandemic was a photo booth company. It was the number one photo booth company in Atlanta, and it just it crippled the industry. It crippled the photo booth industry and the event industry. As you mentioned, for birthdays, for those small occasions locally, and one of the mind blowing things I noticed in 2020, I relocated to Mexico to kind of figure out how to explain this technology to a third world country in the event of small businesses that never really onboarded to Web 2. How do you explain this technology? Because I think offline, this was the disconnect. Everybody in the Web 3 bubble got it. They were informed about it. They figured it out. But my goal was to explain this or onboard to a company, specifically an NFT art gallery that we onboarded that started a year ago as an art gallery. And this painter didn't know about NFTs, but when I informed him about this new evaluation system, how he can earn more money for his painting, and I explained it in the form analogy of energy, of as holders, when holders have a certain frequency of energy, the value accumulates. In the event of this bear market, when fear is infused in the holders, it devalues the currency. This is kind of like the simplest explanation or spiritual element to blockchain. Is not really being discussed. Everything's technology, but this is all just a level of consciousness. But with that said, the most mind-blowing thing I noticed was this COVID pandemic didn't affect Mexico, didn't affect small businesses in the way it did America, because there's this competitive nature that exists here, where profit ideally divided us. We were all competing for profit. We're all competing and undercutting people. You have small businesses undercutting each other, and then you have bigger businesses ideally bidding on the same keywords and bidding on the same buyer or traffic as the small businesses, which is the conflict of interest.
Right.
I was running PPC campaigns for bigger businesses that were, small businesses that were competing with Amazon and Etsy for the same keywords. So, this goes to show you that the bigger businesses don't want the smaller businesses to exist. They just want them to show them how to, or provide them with the data or analytics to attract their customers so they can take them away from them, ideally, to the bigger brands. So, as you mentioned, there's this system that's broken here in America when it comes to our economy and fair business that benefits everybody. In certain countries, there's ethics that exist that you don't take away jobs or you don't take away business from somebody else that you know personally. There's this cold, lack of heart, lack of love that exists in our economy here,
Yeah.
where it's like, you get numb to the big fish swallowing the small fish. And that small fish ultimately is the small town business, local business, mom and pop shops are losing all their customers to these bigger brands. So,
Right.
this kind of led over, the last 20 plus years has led to this economy breaking, this economy model just, leading to the pandemic. It broke. It's like the levees in New Orleans. And now we have ushered in this new economy, and these small businesses don't know how to onboard. There's a lack of education to, okay, how do I relaunch my business, or how do I
Right.
onboard my business? Because nobody's explaining this new way of using NFTs or using crypto to create capital. So ideally, this is where our blockchain nonprofit comes in to help businesses for free usher or onboard to blockchain without the fees or this buy-in of
Right.
something that they're unsure with. So I think that we're we're witnessing a new economy, but this economy is an even playing field, meaning that if you have a great NFT or you have a great product or art, you can compete with the big time players. You can compete with the bigger Fortune 100 companies in a way that we never had this level of playing field before Web3.
Very well said. And I want to bring up another point to you, and I wanted to see where your thoughts were on this. So, I came across a study last year, and I think the numbers are probably different now. But I came across a study last year of areas of the world that have the highest daily crypto volume per day. Among the top ones in the list, it was Ukraine, it was Kenya, it was Peru, and the Philippines. I have various friends and colleagues from all those areas. So, seeing that, I like to ask, what is going on in your neck of the woods where people are, let's say, more engaged in this, participating in this a lot more versus, let's say, the first world, so to say? Because I was very curious about this, so to say, because you would think that, okay, first world countries are just going to adopt this way faster. So in Nigeria and in Ukraine, especially Ukraine prior to the war, people were using crypto apps on a daily basis, widely, to just buy things. Whether it's groceries, whether it's anything, people were sending money back and forth. Like it was its own parallel economy, so to say. Over here, not so much, at least not yet anyway. But I ask everybody, what's going on where everybody is seemingly jumping into this and using it already? And what they all told me in different ways was this: whenever there's a catastrophe or whenever, so to say, the shit hits the fan, the first things that close are the banks. So when people are trying to run to the bank and get their money out, they can't. And, by the way, not to put all of that on the bank, but that's just kind of like the pattern of history, so to say. So what they said is that people where we are more open to that because of kind of the lessons of history, so to say. What happens when something really bad happens? And I think we all saw during the beginnings of the Russian invasion of Ukraine, people were able to send crypto like crazy to
Right.
Ukrainians over there, because they were locked out of their bank accounts and they couldn't get things as well. And it kind of makes me wonder as far as the values and kind of where the road is going to eventually lead. But it kind of seems like this: are we going to reach a point where forces that be are going to be like, you can't have it both ways? You either have traditional finance in the institutions or you have crypto. Or do you think there could be some sort of coexistence between two of those? Because it seems like, on one hand, some banks, some of the big players are trying to adopt it, so to say, to be fair. On the other hand, there is a big status quo segment that does not want to see this work. So I'm kind of wondering, can these two, in both a philosophical and physical sense, actually coexist and help each other out? Or is it going to kind of be like, I don't know, like a David and Goliath type of thing for a while.
It's a great question. I made a video about that specific topic.
Awesome.
In the event of, I think the biggest disconnect with this new currency system is that 90% of our currency is already digital, and we never really learned what currency was. We just trusted the process. We just trusted the system. We didn't trust. We didn't have a doubt or fear in it enough to want to learn it or master it. We
Yeah.
just thought it was going to work forever. We didn't have the classes in high school about finances. We didn't have the kind of the education, the same educational awareness that we had with history and all these other courses that we felt like we'd never need in the future. The most important
Right.
one we needed was currency. So when it comes to relearning this new currency, a lot of us never learned it from the beginning. So
Good
it's
point.
overwhelming for the masses to kind of be open minded to this new currency system. And I think in regards to what happened in Ukraine specifically, is that they woke up to realize that they had no access to their money. And in the event of that playing out, that could happen to any country, any given moment, any given time. You know, I don't think that in the event of the U.S. adapting digital currency, that we're going to get a heads up, that we're going to get a notification, an email to say, hey, we're going to switch over, or
Right.
this currency is going to
Right.
collapse, or this bank is not going to be open tomorrow morning, so get all your
Yeah.
money out right now. And as a result of that, ultimately, currency started as a barter system, and that's when it was fair. That's the only time it
Yeah.
really worked for everybody, is when you barter bread, you barter, whatever you needed for
Salts.
the time being.
Yeah.
It wasn't stored, or it wasn't hoarded from the people. That was frowned upon, and I think once that became normal to hoard the abundance of it in the event of other people needing it, that's when it became broken. And I think universally, the benefit of COVID is that it's a reset of our economy system, but it gave us enough time to sit back and realize that this economy wasn't right for us spiritually, and a lot of people pivoted their role and said that wasn't making them happy. It wasn't about the money at that point. People onboarded to new careers and left jobs, and we're seeing this epidemic now where people are quitting because it's not energetically benefiting them. You know what I mean? And I
Yeah.
think the way I explained the 2020 surge in wealth when it came to NFTs was digital artists got a chance to do what they love for a living.
Right.
And until you do what you love for a living, will you unlock your infinite wealth? Because that passion, of doing what you
Like that.
love creates wealth. So this is currency. When you're doing something you don't like on a daily basis, you're blocking your currency, or you're limiting your currency, which makes you miserable. So it's kind of a cycle of energy that's you're putting out, and people can feel it. And then,
Yeah.
it directly affects your finances. And I think now, we had a time to rest and a time to kind of pivot, to do what we love. So the importance of Love NFT, and me and my wife creating a blockchain nonprofit called BLKLUV was to interject the love aspect into business, and allow people to do what they love, because now we can do that with NFTs. So segueing back to the question of what happened in Ukraine and Russia, in the event of our currency system collapsing tomorrow,
Right.
NFTs allow us to have stored value, to barter in a way where NFTs can be bartered like currency because it's currency.
Yeah.
And I think that ties into your original question of the misconception of NFTs. NFTs are currency. They're backed by the fungible token of the blockchain, and I think that there's been this media push of NFTs being art. It's bigger than art. It's a
Right.
currency system, and it's backed by blockchain technology to evaluate what's the worth of that NFT. So in the event of anything collapsing, or fiat going away tomorrow, NFTs can be bartered in a use case of, you need this service, I need this service. Let's barter this NFT. Ideally, this was our pandemic relief solution with Love NFT to back every service, food.
Yeah.
Any industry can be backed by NFTs. And with a lot of these kind of Web 2 issues of homelessness or rental crisis,
Right.
all these problems will be solved with NFTs. That if in the event of hunger anywhere around the world, an NFT can be airdropped to anybody who needs food, and all a restaurant has to do is accept the NFT as a form of payment for in exchange for physical food. So a
Yeah.
lot of our real world problems can be solved instantly. A lot of people are aware of this, but it's about who wants to move forward, who wants to present the solution to the world that helps people out in real time.
Lots to unpack there, and some very great points raised. I wanted to, throw this question at you, and I wanted to know your thoughts. So, I guess one way to put it is like you can't unring the bell. I had a teacher when I was a kid who used to always say that you can't unring the bell, and it seemed like at 2020, I don't know if this was some sort of mass wake up call, collective consciousness type of thing, but you saw a lot of people kind of break check themselves and say, why am I doing this? So to say. And you've seen, I think we've all seen this huge surge of entrepreneurs coming out throughout these past 2 years, really swinging for the fences for their own ideas. But also, you've seen a mass exodus of either both layoffs and people quitting. And it seems to me like this. Up to that point, perhaps there was a structure, and people played within the rules and the boundaries of that structure. But it seemed like either the rules or restrictions were just too burdensome. People were burning out. People were not, let's say, going up people were not really being economically upwardly mobile, so to say. And people just kind of said, well, F it. You know what? I know what I like. I know what I'm going to do. Let me give it a shot for better or for worse. What do you think about that?
No, I definitely agree. As I mentioned earlier, there was a broken system that people became numb to, and I think that during the pandemic, it allowed us to really to go within and look within and say, is this a career or industry making me happy? And I think that question being asked, you know, among humanity around the world has resulted in a shift, um,
Yep.
in a shift in our economy, and I think people are more open to change now. More open to being entrepreneurs and kind of doing their own business. And I think that is just a level of consciousness to onboard to Web3 because it's an independence. You have to manage your own keys. You have to manage your own money. Manage your own assets. This level of management, we've been relying on other parties to do so. And I think,
Yep.
in the event of comparison of d-commerce to e-commerce, there's no more overhead. You no longer need to pay a hosting company $100 a month to host your products. They still own your analytics. They still
Yeah.
own your data. In the event of you not paying, you don't have to pay for a domain name, every year. You don't have to pay for email software or traditional business Web2 software a month. All these fees could have been suspended, during the pandemic in 2020 to allow small businesses to keep their doors open longer. You
Yeah.
know, as a small business owner, this totals to thousands of dollars a month of overhead of running an e-commerce company,
Yeah.
and having to ship products and having to, all this traditional overhead of running a business. Nobody wanted to suspend these payments because these companies needed to retain or generate this profit, no matter if they lost businesses or not. I think it was very selfish in the event
Yeah.
of the amount of families that were affected, but nobody publicly had these conversations that there's families on the end of these small businesses. There's people that have to pay rent, and this resulted in the rental crisis. Is because these small businesses collapsing had a trickle effect on the communities and people in real life that nobody wanted to address. So we're just seeing a trickle effect of people or companies not helping out or doing enough to help the small players, because we're all players in this ecosystem. Um,
Right.
but it's just about, purpose at this point. And I think that now we have an opportunity to kind of usher in or create a new business model that is not about profit; it's about purpose. And our
Yeah.
motto is ideally ideally purpose over profit, because it's the reverse of the Web 2 model, profit over purpose.
Yeah.
So it's just at this point, education and learning, how can we help each other out? How can we look at each other from a place of purpose versus how can I profit off of you?
Yeah.
This uh, this model is phasing out, and I think the wars and kind of the what we're seeing with the inflation is the old system trying to hang on and claw and sustain its existence in this new digital economy that is bound to happen and is happening, and it can't be stopped at this point.
Yeah. One of the major themes I picked up on that was infrastructure. From some of the things you're hitting on, and it seems like, if we're to use a historical example, the last major infrastructure revolution in the U.S. was the interstate highway system. Under the Eisenhower administration, really connecting all parts of the country, together. East Coast, West Coast, the South, Midwest. These are places you can now drive to. And it seems like in any successful era of society, you do have this kind of coalescence of people and ideas able to reach each other, so to say, able to exchange ideas. You had the Silk Road in ancient China. You had actually the road system, from the Romans. You had essentially the various types of transportation systems with the ancient Egyptians, stretching all over Africa and the Middle East, trading spices, trading salt, trading materials and whatnot. It seemed like the Web 2 internet revolution was supposed to do that, but it kind of didn't. People are kind of cloistered, so to say. But it seems like now Web3 and blockchain has done that better than many things in recent history. I mean, hell, even us speaking together right now, this is from essentially like a shared type of creative interest in blockchain and Web3. And I noticed this across the industry. This is actually a very uniting force for people, bringing people from all over with different ideas to try to do projects. I see it all the time. What do you think is special about this place? Because I would say it's almost a phenomenon right now, with the way ideas are coming to life and the way people who otherwise would not meet each other come together and do these things. What's unique about, you could say, the heart or the philosophical foundation of, let's say, people in this space, where it's like, you know what? Let me go outside my village. Let me go outside my town. Let me go see what's in the next block. Let's see who I can make friends with.
Yeah, great question. I think the simplest way to explain that is blockchain is unity. It's funny that unity is a key element as a platform to this metaverse. It's essential
Yeah.
to integrate unity in our blockchain metaverse projects, but it's purely due to the word, is that blockchain allows us to unify on a higher level, a higher dimension of consciousness, that we're not segregated from a place of state, a state of mind, a state
Right.
location, physical address. That no longer divides us. So as these divisions kind of dissolve, we have to understand that the only thing that exists on blockchain is numbers. There's no race, there's no creed, there's no
Right.
sex, there's none of those division terminologies that exist to divide us as humanity. So it's important that we don't feed into um, this way of controlling us on blockchain. Because
Right.
if we no longer use these terms on blockchain, then we're no longer divided. We're ideally just one in a sense. So if we were to all unite on blockchain and use one cryptocurrency, use one blockchain, use one format or platform, we would no longer worry about money. So at this
Yeah.
point, it's about removing ego, because the project that unites the most people will win. It's not about the project that gets the most investment or obtains the most funding. Or, that's not how this works. This works based off of
Yeah.
purpose. So if we were all to collectively, millions of us unite for a greater purpose, we can solve anything, at this point, because this is how the metaverse works. If we as a collective consciousness unite and then we put our energy towards solving this specific problem, then that problem will be solved. That's how this plays out. So, we have to understand that we're still trying to be divided with this market and these coins, all these
Right.
different kind of coins, and people swinging community to community based off of thinking that they're going to profit off this coin. Then this coin goes up and it goes down. Web 5 is when we realize all this technology is within us. This is what Jack Dorsey is talking about.
Right.
Web 5 is when we realize that we don't need this technology. It's all right here. It's all in
Right.
our minds. And, this AR, VR, we don't need to put headsets on to see or create a new reality. We just need to manifest and tap into uniting, because, as a collective consciousness, that's how we started. We were divided ideally for profit. Now the cycle is repeating itself, and we're getting back to oneness, and that's ultimately how this will play out.
Very well said. And maybe you could shed some light on this. How is it so far that Web3 and blockchain has almost kind of sanitized itself or protected itself from kind of the typical societal polarization shit, so to say? Like, in fact, I would say, from what I've seen out there, if you're the type of person who is like this very highly opinionated, highly politicized, highly combative person, it's in fact actually quite shunned in this space as well.
Right.
How does blockchain actually stay almost pure in the face of that as well? You don't see people who are like, radical on either side of the spectrum trying to go in here and finding any type of success. It's just not working.
Yeah, right. The universe cleanses itself, and I think, with all this money being lost in certain projects is because a lot of these companies are trying to recreate Web 2 and hoard all this crypto and get back to this Web 2 wealth system of we have the most crypto, we have the most Bitcoin. This crypto is for the people. It's meant to circulate in the currency faction of energy. It's not supposed to be stored in a stagnant, account. The universe is removing this money from these bigger players that are not utilizing it for good. And we have now the ability to help each other out. In the event of somebody in any region of the world needing money, we can send it to them directly. We can airdrop money to anybody. So at this point, why do we still have issues with finances as a world? When we can create infinite wealth. I can create currency, so anybody can create currency in this space now. So it's not about a lack of anymore. It's just about how do we divvy this out, or how do we give it to the people in need of anything from homelessness to rental crisis to food. Anything can be purchased with crypto now. So we have the solutions to all these problems.
Yeah. One of the things that comes to mind too, like, first off, I can't remember any time in history where people were so naturally at each other's throats on any given day. Like, I remember just as a kid, I don't remember people talking about politics so much. Not at all, in fact. People I think tended to enjoy things a bit more. Whether you're a teenager, whether you're a young adult, whether it's a kid and whatnot. And, it kind of makes me wonder this. You hear, let's say, people, big wigs, whether it's in DC or elsewhere, talk about what is constitutional. And we're going to take the politics out of this, but if, let's say, the United States, if we're like the inheritors of like what a great democracy is supposed to be, isn't blockchain in a decentralized system almost like the digital form of that belief? Like, shouldn't that be something that's a lot more celebrated, decentralized, empowering, upward mobility, equal representation, having the opportunity to have a voice, on, let's say a digital ledger, but still, like, I'm thinking to myself, this should actually be a lot more celebrated. If we're going to talk about democracy and the Constitution, many of these projects on the ledger, in fact, do a lot of that stuff better than other parts of real life, in fact.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Ideally, everything would be public ledger. Everything would be public, and every business would be public. It's just
Yeah.
about who's going to be the most transparent or public business that's going to be the most trusted one.
Yeah.
Ideally, a lot of NFT projects are just using the profit side of this technology, not the transparency of how this will all play out. As you mentioned, is voting from the beginning. The way that we hire is going to change. That the NFT holders can vote on who the employees are for the project. This is kind of like the level that's not being utilized in a lot of these projects. Of from the start, the community should vote on every aspect of the project if the company is truly for the community.
Right.
This level of integrating the community vote midway after the team has been hired, after the funding has been kind of dispersed or utilized, um, that's when we allow the community to vote. No, like this will play out where the community votes from the start, to build that trust because as me and you previously discussed, a lot of these rug pulls are an illusion. Um, there's this system
Yeah.
of fear that has been um, cracking or trying to infiltrate Web3 to devalue this new technology, and it's been working. This what caused the bear market. This level of
Yeah.
fear from all these headlines of this money missing, this project rug pull, this happening, but we don't get these same alerts and these same notifications every time a Web2 bank account gets hacked or a debit card gets hacked. We don't get these same information or this notifications or these news headlines about every day there's money missing from an account on Web2.
Right.
We don't see that on purpose, but we see it on Web3 because there's this fear that's still trying to prolong. And if we have fear as humanity, then we need a middleman. See, this is what's happening in Web3. We didn't have fear 2 years ago with this technology, so nobody like discussed. Oh, maybe we need middlemen to ensure trust, or maybe we need this. There's headlines today about Mark Cuban's uh, investment that filed bankruptcy and caused all this amount of middle class to lose money. We hear about these headlines, but we ultimately don't discuss this fear, love, frequency of how currency works. There's still a lack of understanding that we just talk about the fear element, but love equates to infinite wealth. This
Yeah.
is what Tesla was able to tap into, infinite currency,
Right.
and this only happens on a level of operating in a higher dimension. In the fifth dimension is where love is the only true currency. And that's where you no longer have to worry about a lack of or not having enough money or this is only exists in the fear frequency. You know what I mean? So as long as
Right.
we're as humanity in the fear frequency, will we have to evaluate or will we have to worry about a lack of anything, a lack of money, a lack of, and this is where we have to utilize a third party in the event of having fear, how we operate on the peer-to-peer level. Because if
Yeah.
we don't trust each other as humanity, then we need a middleman to be brought in to mediate how we, operate our business or how we disperse our funds because we don't have trust in each other. So, this is ultimately a bigger solution. We have to trust each other, and we
Right.
have to stop feeding into these fear headlines that are being uh, invested in. The middleman is invested in this tainting this community and
Right.
tainting crypto. The term around the world has been tainted by the middleman who benefits from this fear. Ultimately. So you
Yeah.
have to understand who you're dealing with, and as a community, we have to just operate on a higher frequency of love.
Well said. So, based on some of the points you raised, the blockchain in a weird way almost kind of implies a greater trust. Because on one hand, there is no middleman, but everything is transparent on the ledger. You can't change it. You can't retroactively alter things. It's there. So it seems like there's almost this, on one hand, it's almost like the benefit of the doubt, but on the other hand, there's a very, very clear, you could say, checks and balances type of tool built into this already.
Right. Yeah, definitely. In examining and reaching out to numerous nonprofits, initially going down this crypto rabbit holes when I realized that that system was broken. That's why we didn't have trust in grants and
Right.
nonprofits, small businesses being saved by nonprofits because this system of public ledger or checks and balances didn't exist. We hear about this funding and we hear about these grants and all this traditional nonprofit existing, but nobody could see it. And this was probably the greatest loophole in our economy was
Yeah.
nonprofits. So now with blockchain nonprofits, we can see where this money's going, but then we also can send NFTs or donate crypto directly to the person in need without having to send it to a third party. So this just changes everything in regards to how we do business and how we trust each other. Because in the
Yeah.
peer-to-peer fashion, this is what Cash App is. This is what Venmo is. These are all peer-to-peer blockchain, platforms.
Right.
That's the Web 2. So
Right.
it's just a new age. And it's
Yeah.
just about informing and really being conscious of what we're doing and how we're doing it in a better way and teaching each other and sharing this information with each other because we all profit from it.
Right. And, that made me think of one thing too, based on what you're talking about. So, you know, at any given time, I think in business, in commerce, in economic history, if somebody can figure out how to have an unfair edge or leverage, more often than not, they tend to, push that lever, so to say. And that's how you get monopolies, and that's how you get like these little mini, oligarchies and cartels within business that more or less, make the rules for the industry and really just kind of enrich just you and your teammates, as they say. Do you think to an extent that blockchain kind of almost protects people from their own kind of baser, more negative instincts, so to say, in this space? Because listen, I think any given human being is subject to those temptations, especially when it comes to money. So I'm thinking here, if there is this open ledger that anybody can see at any given time, and let's say even after the damage is done, it's automatically, diagnosable, so to say, who the bad actors are. Does this kind of protect us from, our own, let's say, worst halves of ourselves?
Yeah, definitely. I think that bad actors will always exist, but this technology protects us because me sending money to you to your wallet address, there's no fear in that. It's fear when you have to send it to multiple parties and you have
Right,
to make sure that they send it to where they're
right,
supposedly intending on sending it. In the event of a nonprofit, we've watched this crisis after crisis. Billions of dollars get sent to a third party, and only a small percentage goes to the intended recipient in the event of the person in need. This technology removes that need of having to send it to a middleman to trust that they take their portion of what they think they are entitled to, and then they send the rest whenever they want to. We can provide real time relief to anybody in the world, and I think there's a country that has banned that. I don't recall the specific country, but it was in Asia, because changes how we operate. Is that this controlling party that wants to middleman every single transaction around the world to ensure that they remain in power, that they have control of how this plays out. That's the
yeah,
ones that are dictating this fear system of what if this, or kind of promoting this fear to the masses, so they don't want to onboard to this new economy. So this is ideally what we're dealing with in the Web3 space. It's not just the learning curve; it's the fear factor that has been shoved down our throat for 10 years. And I tell everybody,
yeah.
Google who owns the most blockchain patents. Google that term,
That's a good
who
point,
owns the
right?
most blockchain patents, and
Making notes
you'll start
myself
to
by
awaken
myself.
you'll start to awaken to who's behind all this fear and manipulating the masses because they want to prolong their existence. I don't have to say their name. All you have to do is Google it, and then you start to question um, why are they not utilizing this and pushing this in regards to where's your private keys at, where's your why is the APY only this rate if they're using blockchain not blockchain technology in comparison to Binance
Right.
APY. You start to go down this crypto rabbit hole of, why am I paying these overdraft fees if they're using this technology? So, it just makes you think about who's really for your benefit, and I
Right.
think in the event of being able to manage your own assets, that's the wave. That's really your financial freedom is
Right.
ownership.
Well said. And we covered a tremendous amount of ground. So I have one more question, to end on a final note. So, based on what we covered today, so what does Love NFT have in store for the remainder of the year as far as projects, conferences, milestones, goals, you name it?
Great question. I think that creating the blueprints of how these industries will utilize NFTs specifically is our goal. We're past the point of theory, and everybody keeps on talking about how it will be used, but we're in the space of creating these new blueprints of how to monetize your products and services with NFTs. To answer the question, how does this benefit me today? Because the masses are numb to hearing these theories. They want to know, how does it make my business better? How does this make, how do I earn from this right now? This is the simple question that everybody wants to understand. They don't want to understand the technology. They don't care about, how the latest and greatest, protocols and things that we care about in the Web3 space. They only want to understand is, how does this better make my business better ultimately. So creating blueprints in regards to you being able to utilize NFTs for your podcast and monetize, your guests and people who watch your podcast with your NFTs. These are new ways to monetize your business. But this is how, somebody utilizing YouTube and being reliant on 500,000 views to generate $1,000. This will make people wake up to say, yeah, I'm spending too much time on Web2 trying to monetize my followers and customers in a way where you can make the equivalent of that amount of money in a day, 2 days, or auction your services and create instant crypto capital. This is what not being explained to the masses, and this is why they still utilize Web2 to monetize their business. So until they understand how to monetize their business on Web3, will they onboard to Web3?
Very well said. Well, I have to say, this has to be among the highest, the high fives as far as episode goes. I feel like I just went through the Matrix and learned Kung Fu in 30 seconds. So, listen, Hahz, Wizard of Hahz, thank you very much for coming on to the show today. We really went through the Matrix as far as Web3 and metaphysics today. And, some of these things that are going to be the ingredients and, bedrock for making this, industry work. In fact, I think this would almost be like a history and philosophy lesson in 1 hour with Hahz. That's what I should probably call this episode. So listen, Hahz, thank you so much for coming on today. I'm very much looking forward to seeing what else you have in store with Love NFT and your other projects, for the remainder of this year. And I would say to anybody, whatever you do, be sure, as far as whatever fire and fuel you have inside of you, make sure it is backed by a value, a tangible, outward, metaphysical type of aim to this. I think life is not simply just what's exactly in front of you. And that's why people are kind of always in search of things that are greater, things with like greater purposes and greater meaning. And I think that does, in fact, correlate to Web3. I think that's why many of us are here. We see a better future. We want to create a better future. And that's why, people like Hahz, the Wizard of Hahz, Terry, many of my guests, they come on the show to express how they want to do that. So again, Hahz, Wizard of Hahz, thanks again for coming on. I think this is really enlightening. Like I said, I think we both just went through the Matrix today on a lot of these things. So I think this was an absolutely awesome episode.
Thanks for having me. And I look
Thank
forward
you.
to future episodes.
Oh yeah. I'll be a knocking. Don't worry. So I'm looking forward to having you back on in the near future.
All right.
Hey,
I'll
enjoy your day, and
look
I'll
forward
talk to you
it
later.
coming. All right. Take care.
You too.